Let's take a brief look at the Golden Grin Heist DLC. This was the 7th paid Heist DLC released for Payday 2 and has the Payday crew traveling all the way across the country to Vegas. The dentist's previous heists, such as the Big Bank and the Diamond, have seemingly been tests to see if we were prepared to take on the huge task of robbing the Golden Grin Casino. You can do this heist in either stealth or loud. Let's focus on the stealth aspect first. Upon spawning in the heist for stealth, the first thing you'll notice is you and your crew are entirely unarmed. This is called civilian mode, as you are effectively civilians. As a civilian, guards and cameras will be oblivious to your actions. You can walk right up to them and not be detected at all. However, your actions are severely limited. You're basically delegated to being a scout, looking around for objectives, key locations, and so on, planning your heist in advance. Or you can forget about all of that and gamble. All of the slot machines in the casino are fully functional, even in civilian mode. They're actually free to use, only costing time instead of cash. If you feel like making some extra money, this is technically an option. However, similar to real life, the slot machines almost never pay out. Very rarely you can actually win these and receive a slip of instant cash, which is worth about the value of a bag depending on the difficulty you're on, and can be increased further with Chameleon Aced. Anyways, once you're done casing a place and losing its slots, you'll need to locate a guitar case with your gear stashed inside. Once you grab your gear, you're now in casing mode. Civilians won't pay attention to you, but guards and cameras will. The case also has some sleeping gas, which will be required later on. So the plan from this point on is complicated. There are a lot of objectives and steps that will take you all around the casino. I'd highly recommend playing this heist with contractor voices enabled, as even I tend to get confused and lose track of what objectives I need to do on this heist. So okay, first things first, you'll need to locate the blueprints for the casino's layout for Bane to scour through. These are in the archives room at the back end of the casino. The hallways leading up to that room, which you'll be spending most of your time in, have several cameras and guards in them. Do your best to avoid or carefully eliminate the security to make your job easier. There are several storage closets to hide in or stash bodies, as well as lifts that can be opened and closed from either side. Anyways, make your way to the archives. Dodge the cameras and a potential civilian to find the blueprints on one of the shelves. Once you have them, head to the server room and fax the blueprints over to Bane. The idea is that Bane is looking for a vent that exits into the security room of the casino, which by the way acts as both a camera room and a blockade deterring access to the vault. He finds a suitable vent, however it's located behind a locked door inside one of the guests' rooms. So we'll need to find that guest and steal their keycard. Grab a pen drive from the security room and carefully make your way to the front of the casino, entering the check-in staff area. Plug the pen drive in and download information on the casino's guests. While this is happening, there are some loose bundles of cash and poker chips to collect, both worth $1,000 each. Grab the pen drive and make your way all the way back to the server room again, being extraordinarily cautious of the copious amounts of security and gamblers in your path. Upload the guest details to Bane so he can figure out who we need to pinch a keycard from. There are two possibilities here: a guy wearing a white shirt playing slots near the smoking area, or a guy in a pink shirt playing slots near the poolside. Locate the target, at which point Bane will come up with an idea to lure them away from the crowd. The target will have a drink that we can spike, but if the drink tastes funny, they'll know something is up. So look at the color of his drink and find the according bottle at one of the casino's 3 bars. Whether by the pool, upstairs, or in the VIP lounge, grab and spike the correct drink. While the civilian is distracted by Bane's call, pour them another glass. After the guest takes a sip, they'll need to puke their guts out, heading to the nearest restroom or back alley. Once they're isolated, deal with them and secure the keycard. There are still a lot of steps to go, so don't get complacent yet. Now, take a stairwell upstairs and find the room with the number Bane gives you, and use your keycard to gain access. Don't fret if you accidentally try to open the wrong room, nothing happens as a result. Once inside the correct room, locate the vent and pump it full of sleeping gas. There's also some loose cash and jewelry to grab inside of the room. Now that all the guards inside the security room are asleep, the cameras in the casino will finally be disabled, making traversing the casino a little bit easier. This is good news for us, as the next step is to locate the 3-digit code required to unlock the vault. It's been split up into 3 electronic briefcases scattered around the casino. One of them is in the manager's office directly across the hall from the security room. Tear the painting off the wall, which can be secured for extra cash by the way, lockpick or silently drill the safe open and get your digit. The next one is inside of the guard's locker room, protected by a single guard and a handful of cameras. Search through the lockers until you locate the briefcase. You also may find some more loose cash and poker chips throughout the guard's belongings. The final digit is more complicated. There are several places this briefcase can be, always within proximity of the casino's pit boss. Most of these locations are less than ideal, however, there is a way to guarantee it will be located in a fairly easily accessible spot. More on that later. It's worth mentioning you don't actually have to wait until this point to find the vault code. You can locate each of the digits at any point during the heist beforehand. So as long as you've opened all 3 briefcases in general, the game understands that you know the code. Once you've done that, head to the back halls again and enter the security room. All of the guards are asleep, so don't worry about them. Now you can finally open the vault, or not, as there's lasers guarding it. These can be disabled via a 60-second hack on a PC. During this time, there is nearly no risk of being caught and not much to do at all, and merely serves as a sloppy way of countering ECM rushes. After the hack is complete, you can finally, for real this time, access the vault. Bane should recite the digits of the code back to you in case you forgot. However, the numbers will always need to be inserted in the order red, green, blue, or RGB. Fairly easy to remember. If you get the code wrong, you'll need to wait several seconds before attempting it again. Once the code is successfully punched in, the vault will open. You'll now be greeted by some more locked doors. However, head upstairs and you'll find bountiful piles of cash, both loose and baggable, strewn across the tables in this extravagant vault. There is a lot of dosh here, so grab it all. I'd highly recommend using the aced chameleon skill for this heist to get a huge payout bonus from all of those loose piles of cash. You can also crack open the cages downstairs for even more cash using quiet drills or keys, which can be found in the security room upstairs. The main goal here, however, is a special piece of loot that the dentist has his eyes on. Drill open the door downstairs, dodge some embarrassingly ineffective security lasers, and grab this thing. Nobody really knows what it is. To me, it looks like Pandora's box. All that we do know is that it's only worth $500 on every difficulty. A bit disappointing to say the least. Still, there are plenty of bags of cash to bring to the van parked just outside the delivery room in the casino's back halls. There are tens of bags to move, and this can take quite a while even with 4 players. At the very least, there is a lift at your disposal to cut down on travel time. Toss the bags onto the platform, hit the button, and the bags will be lifted up the stairs to the security room. Not a huge time saver, but it's not nothing either. Grab as much loot as you feel safe securing and escape. Overall, it's a very complex stealth job with a plethora of objectives in dangerous areas, and the payout is a bit lackluster. Sure, there are plenty of piles of loose cash all throughout the heist, which is excellent, but aside from the next to worthless loot from the dentist, the only bags available are cash, which isn't as valuable as, say, gold. Why doesn't the Golden Grin Casino have any gold to steal? I'll touch more on that later, but first I want to go over the Loud variant of this heist. In Loud, once you have your gear and get started, Bane will inform you to locate the casino's armory next to the locker room and get some C4 from their stash. However, the gate is locked by a passcode, which, you guessed it, is the same code that the vault uses. Password reuse is a good way to get your belongings stolen, people. So, locate the 3 briefcases the same as you would in stealth. This is considerably easier considering the casino's security is no longer a threat to you and the cops likely haven't arrived yet. Grab the code, open the gate, and load up on C4. There's also some ammo caches here that are locked behind drillable gates. The plan is to blast a hole in the ceiling of the vault and drill our way in. So head to the casino floor and get blasting. One of the 2 spots provided will be the correct location, but you will have ample C4 to try them both. In the event you blast the correct spot open on the first try, the remaining C4 can actually be used to blast open guest rooms upstairs to get some bonus loose cash. Anyways, once you've located the vault, strike a flare to have bile fly in and drop off pieces of a winch. This will be used to align the massive drill. Hook up the winch, and now we'll need to signal our blimp, yes, a blimp, to lower the drill down into the casino. A simple flare won't be bright enough to see from that far away, so search through the storage closets in the back halls for some fireworks. Light them up and watch them go. The blimp can see where to go, but still can't lower the drill down until the skylight is opened up. Bust into the security room and start a hack to pry them open. Once the way is clear, finally our vault cracker will start lowering down. Meet the BFD, or Big freaking drill. This drill was designed by Sokol for this specific purpose. Once it's closer to the ground, you'll want to secure the winch to the BFD to position it perfectly over the newly crafted opening in the floor. Now, defend the winch as it brings the BFD into position. After all of this waiting and running around the casino, you can finally plug the drill into 2 separate power boxes and start it up. The BFD's power is intense, drawing so much electricity that the lights in the casino will dim. This is actually a subtle way of improving map's performance, but damn, it looks cool. All that power comes at a cost though, and the BFD is quite a difficult piece of equipment to maintain. Not only can the cops kill the power from both plugs and the control panel, requiring defense at 3 separate positions, but the BFD runs hot. There are 2 massive coolant tanks mounted to the cage's side, and when one of these runs out, it must be refilled at one of the casino's several restrooms. In the event both tanks are drained and the BFD overheats, it will break and require not only the tanks to both be completely filled and restored, but a drill bit to repair it with. This can be found at the delivery room in the back of the casino. The BFD by default takes 7 minutes to cut a massive hole into the vault ceiling, all the time requiring constant attention. There are ways to make this less tedious, however, no matter what the situation, I still find this babysitting to be stressful. Regardless, when the BFD is finally finished, you'll head down into the vault, grab your dosh and the dentist's thing, and escape, just like in Stealth. So overall, this heist is very complex. This isn't exactly a bad thing. The casino is massive and loaded with security, and a part of me loves the very intentional homages to Ocean's 11. It does feel somewhat satisfying to accomplish all the objectives, particularly in Stealth. That being said, I think we can all agree that there are a few too many of said objectives, many of which are simply there for the sake of wasting time. I mean, I feel like Bane should already have blueprints for the casino, considering we have a map available during pre-planning. Surely we could think of a better way to get into the guest rooms without physically needing the key card? Wouldn't the vents exit or enter in a slightly less problematic location, like on the roof? I'm nitpicking at this point, and besides, many of the obnoxious objectives can be avoided or cut down altogether via pre-planning. This plays a major part in tackling this heist, and in my opinion, the Golden Grin has the best pre-planning of any heist in the game. There are a lot of options, including ones you'd expect, like a spotter, sniper, and dead drops, so I'll just go over the unique options available to you. We'll get to that and more right after the break. Welcome back. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, pre-planning. First up are plans of attack. The default is the silent entry, which is completely free and spawns your crew in civilian mode. Conversely, the loud entry, also free, will spawn everybody masked up and provide your crew with a free ammo and doctor bag. For 6 favors out of your available 15, you can start the heist loud with 2 bags of C4 in your limo, bypassing the need to find the armory code altogether. This is fairly expensive, but saves a nice bit of time, which I like overall. Pre-planning shouldn't be black and white, this is good and this is bad. Some granularity in the best method of attack makes for a more interesting and varied heist. Although, that said, the default escape, being the limo you enter the casino with, is terrible and should never be used in practice. You've got to carry heavy bags very far away from the action to make this escape work, which I cannot recommend. The blimp escape costs 4 favors and makes the method of delivering the BFD double as your escape, with loot being dropped off on top of the drill's cage. This is an effective escape as you can toss bags up and out of the hole in the vault ceiling. While this does expose you to a fair amount of gunfire, it cuts down on travel time substantially. And finally, at 8 favors is the simple van escape parked in the delivery room. This is the same escape that is always present regardless of pre-planning while stealthing this heist. While expensive, it is a safe option when paired with the bag lift I mentioned earlier. Moving on are various assets to speed this heist up and make traversing the map easier. Things like jamming the skylight barrier open to skip the step of hacking it, unlocking all the doors and gates in the back of the casino, very useful for stealth, as well as the guitar case position, which will let you choose exactly where your gear will be stashed for the stealth entry. You can also disable the metal detectors scattered throughout the casino to avoid accidentally and embarrassingly sounding the alarm. For backup options, you can choose the blimp turbo to speed up the delivery time of the BFD, Heartbreaker Annie to guarantee that the pit boss as well as his briefcase will be in the VIP lounge, and the ATC bribe, which will allow Bile to fly in and deliver the winch parts more quickly. And now for arguably the most interesting of the assets available via pre-planning, upgrades for the BFD. For 3 favors, you can double the size of the coolant tanks, cutting down on bathroom breaks while drilling. Very useful indeed. For 2 favors, you can optimize the engines, shaving a minute off of drilling time. Or for 3 favors, you can add more power, cutting 2 minutes down. These 2 assets cannot stack, you gotta choose one or the other. And for 2 favors, you can improve the plasma cutter, meaning in the event of overheating, there's less of a chance of the BFD breaking altogether. This isn't nearly as useful as it sounds, as you really shouldn't let the coolant run out anyways. There are also attachments that can be externally mounted to the BFD. The water level indicator and timer both cost 1 favor each and will, well, indicate the water level and show the drill time remaining, respectively. A toolbox can be added to a compartment of the BFD for a single point, giving you 3 drill bits to repair the drill with in the event of overheating. This isn't really all that useful considering you shouldn't let that happen in the first place, and you can just as easily get drill bits from the back halls. A medical cabinet can also be mounted to the compartment for 2 favors. For 1 favor per, you can actually mount sentries to the corners of this drill's cage, although they're unupgraded basic sentries that cannot be refilled. Still, it's a neat addition. They're also available as dead drops. And finally, the extra battery at 3 points will remove one of the 2 cords needed to power the BFD, meaning you only have to defend 2 points where the power can be cut instead of 3. This is very useful for smaller groups of heisters, or if you just want less pressure points to potentially falter. So okay, that's all of the objective information about this heist out of the way, so let's get on to how I personally feel about it. Golden Grin, for starters, is a beautiful heist. The artwork, textures, colors, everything is just excellent. Especially the grandiose scale. It really does feel like a high-class casino. There is a lot of detail put into nearly every spot in this map. High marks for this one art team. Not to mention the cute little sides like the slot machines, lifts, and bathroom stalls. It's little bonuses like that that make the map feel more interactive. From a level design perspective, it's a bit harder to say. The slot machines don't make for effective cover, but there are plenty of rooms and props to hide behind during loud. I do have a distaste for the infinite assault that begins as soon as you start moving loot, as it makes one of the more interesting parts of the game being hostage trades and creating openings to push with during breaks all but meaningless. For stealth, you'll be mostly sticking to the edges of the map and the back halls, avoiding the main section of the casino as much as possible. This is to be expected as you are trying to remain unseen, but I do wish that the addition of civilian mode made the center of the map have more purpose. Perhaps you could overhear staff talking about key portions of the map, like which locker their briefcase is in or what shelf the blueprints are stored on. An interesting RNG dependent variable are the staircases strewn throughout the casino. Now, there are always 2 staircases to access the upper level at the front of the casino, but further back and in the outdoor areas, there are 5 stairwells that may or may not spawn randomly. The presence, or lack thereof, of these stairwells can make stealthing this heist fairly straightforward or an absolute nightmare, as you'll need to head upstairs at least once. I wish the indoor stairwells were always present, as when they aren't around I find myself struggling to reach the upper floors without getting myself caught. One of my biggest problems with this heist is the loot. As I said earlier, it's the Golden Grin Casino. Where is all of the gold? The only bags available aside from a single painting and the dentist's chest of many things are cash. Here's an interesting thing as well. What exactly is the point from a gameplay perspective of these cages? The loot behind them isn't any better than what's available elsewhere in the vault, and it's not like there's any difficulty in unlocking them or drilling them open. It's just more bags of cash to add to the already copious amounts of bags of cash. This is similar to one of several problems I had with the Alesso heist. Having more bags of loot isn't always the best way to go. I would much rather have varied and valuable loot. Look at Shadow Raid. The objective in and of itself is to get the loot, with less valuable loot being easy to find and secure, and more difficult loot being locked away behind cages, near guards, or in a vault of their own. This is a great way of handling loot bags. Meanwhile, Golden Grin has nothing but nearly 30 bags of cash to tediously haul to your escape. If you want to have these cages that presumably house wealth belonging to guests specifically, why not have more interesting bags in there? Have some jewelry, paintings, loose cash, maybe even an artifact. My overall point here is having a large quantity of the same kind of loot is boring and tedious. It's much more preferable to have less loot with more value and variety. Not to mention, it would help with the rather mediocre payout this heist provides when stacked against the difficulty and time investment. Moving on from that, there is one major problem with this heist that cannot be overlooked. All of that beauty and scale that I mentioned earlier has its cost. This heist runs very poorly, even on my otherwise capable system. While this has more to do with Payday 2's mediocre engine and individual computer setups than it does with the heist itself, it's an unavoidable fact that if many players are getting, say, under 20 FPS on a heist, they're not gonna enjoy playing that heist. Still, despite the performance, despite the uninteresting loot, and despite the tedious objectives in both stealth and loud, I really love this heist. I can't really explain why, other than that I love Ocean's 11. The feeling of stealthily swindling a casino is an enjoyable one, and the massive scale of all the objectives in Loud feels empowering. Maybe not a heist I would wish to tackle all the time, but when played sparingly, the Golden Grin Casino can be a great adventure. Let's move on to the rest of the content this pack provided. For the firearm, we have the Cavity 9mm rifle, a curious weapon in all respects. Despite being loaded with 9mm rounds, this gun does 160 damage. That combined with its intense concealment and surprisingly good accuracy make it an excellent selection for a DMR in a dodge build or a powerful backup in a stealth build. This doesn't come without downsides though, namely the low total ammo, slow draw time, and most importantly, being locked into semi-auto. While you can spam click to fire quickly, not being able to hold the trigger down and unload a swarm of lead into a bulldozer's face is inherently unsatisfying. Still, that doesn't stop the Cavity from being a great choice for any high concealment build. Of course, if you're rocking armor, you're better off sticking with a weapon like the M308. For melee, we have the Jackpot, a torn-off slot machine handle, the Croupier's Rake for racking up poker chips, the Switchblade, I should assume for stabbing, and most interestingly, the Buzzer. The first three weapons aren't anything special, but the Buzzer is a fascinating weapon all around. Upon striking most enemies with this taser, they'll be stunned for just over 3 seconds, as well as receiving a small bit of damage. This makes it perfect for taking hostages to use as assets or jokers. Not only that, but the Buzzer can stun most special enemies, including cloakers. If a cloaker is charging at you, a quick-thinking heister can stun them before they get the chance. The Buzzer will not affect bulldozers or bosses, unsurprisingly. This weapon is very similar to the later added free variant, the Electrical Brass Knuckles. However, the Buzzer's initial swing is slightly faster, although the Brass Knuckles' subsequent swings are themselves faster than the Buzzers. They're very similar in use, and it's really up to you which one you use. Finally, the masks. We have 4, being the Murmillo Galea helmet, the Sports Utility Mask, the King, and the Wheeler Dealer. These masks are good all around, with the Sports Utility Mask taking well to customization, and the King being a goofy looking option for most heisters. And that's about it. So, with Payday 2 Ultimate Edition being just around the corner at the time of this video's release, it's not really worth pointing out if this DLC is worth buying, as you either buy all the DLC or none of it. So instead I'll ask, was the Golden Grin DLC a good addition? Personally, I think so. Sure, it has its problems, it has tedious segments and a boring / slightly lackluster payout, but Payday 2 in and of itself is a lesson in overlooking smaller issues and enjoying what the game has to offer. This doesn't excuse bigger problems like the poor performance, but that's an intrinsic problem with the diesel engine and unfortunately can't really be helped at this point. Heists with poor map design, unfair difficulty, and mediocre visuals are more fair to nitpick, as there's not much good being offered to compensate for the bad. So, with that being said, with a beautiful backdrop, expansive scale, importance of pre-planning, interesting weaponry, and overall satisfaction of pulling a score on the biggest casino in America, I'm more than happy to see the forest through the trees and enjoy the Golden Grin Casino. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.